My name is Márk. This is my first Drupal as well as my first session. I will do a quick brief description about my session. After that, I will do a quick introduction. Then tell you how I'm going to go through my presentation in details. And after the details, you will be able to ask questions, but not only at the end, but also during the presentation. So feel free to ask anytime. I'm glad to answer. So, font validation in Symfony2. The session title is just a little bit misleading, since it's not just about Symfony2, but also about how Symfony2 components solution appears or will appear in Drupal 8. I will do in this session a formalization process. We are going to build in three sort of platforms, framework, CMS, a form just from the scratch. First, I will show you in Drupal 7 pretty quick. After that, I will show you in Symfony2, and finally, hopefully, you will see how the two of them merges into Drupal 8. Here's my contact slide. You can see my full name. Feel free to write anytime, email to me. I won't introduce you BRAINSUM because I already did. You can find also links if you already feel to join us. And about myself, a quick history about my so to speak career. I was first starting web development 4 or 5 years ago, and I started with Symfony2 because of suggestion of a friend. And my first impression was that it's pretty straightforward. The documentation is really good, full with examples. Whatever feature you would like to learn, Symfony2 documentation and cookbooks definitely going to help you to sort it out. But after 1 year of freelancing, I got an invitation to a company, which was my BRAINSUM, and this company was using Drupal. My first impression with Drupal was not that good after Symfony, because giving up the object-oriented environment to nested arrays, it was something like feeling I'm going backwards. But after a while, I started to get like the hooks, which was not an easy job. But also I saw that by Drupal allowing you to have such a good user interface, for example, to create a content, that saves you tons of time, actually. Even though Symfony from performance perspective is better and some way can be clearer, Drupal it's still a good solution. And I already know it. 3 or 4 months at BRAINSUM taught me a lot of lessons in Drupal. And right now we are waiting Drupal 8 to get ready. As far as I know, 13 critical issues are left. And yet, I would like to show you till the end of the session that what are the similarities in Symfony2 in form validation or form topics, and hopefully I will manage it. So, the next 3 little pictures are my hobbies. The first is listening to classical music, not just while working, but also in my free time. Besides that, it also sometimes contains symphonies. But the second one is playing chess games. If any one of you would like to play chess, and maybe he has a board with him, please find me, and I would really like to play during the development. The very last hobby is jogging. That's for my house condition. And let's get started. So, this session is about, as I already told you, that we are going to go through the very same process from 3 different approaches, Drupal 7, Symfony2, and Drupal 8. Then, we also want to find an answer to the question whether Drupal 7 and Symfony2 could be actual or by merging to Drupal 8 uniforms. I also would like to highlight the new stuff in Drupal 8, which is not related to Symfony2, but they are really great. And actually, if any of you is beginner with one of the topic or never used it before, maybe it will give a hint how to start it. By the way, when I'm here, I would like to ask how many of you are familiar with Drupal 7? Hands up, please. Quite a lot of people. What about Symfony 2? Wow, also a lot of people. And Drupal 8? Around 8 hands. Okay. I also want to mention what this session is not about. This session won't give you in details that how many opportunities you have during form creation in any of the platforms. I also want to, to have a winner that among the 3 platforms, which is the best one or which is the worst. This is not my intention. Also, these are going to be really basic practices, so you can, surely some of you have a lot of work around to solve the very same problem. And the last one is related to Drupal 8. This time for me, also because it's a beginner session, but there is not enough time to cover the entity form class in Drupal 8 at all. So, just a quick introduction to the form process. First of all, we always going to go through the file structure, just the very basics, what you need to get started. Then after that, we are going to have a quick review on the routing. After that, we are going to build hopefully a form. Then we try to validate it. Then do something in the submit part. And finally, we will check out what are our possibilities on the front end side in templates maybe. We are going to have a pretty simple yet primitive entity. It's going to be a task entity with 2 fields. One is going to be the name of the field, which is probably a text field, and the second is going to be a date. And just you to never get lost, I will always put in comments that where we are staying in the file structure, so that easier to follow in this way. We're starting with Drupal 7. Most of you are pretty familiar with it, that to create a module, we need to create a folder with the name, the machine name of it. We definitely need to have an info file for the system, and also create a module file, even if it's blank. In our case, although it's not needed, we are going to separate the form file. So logically, it's going to look a little bit better. Drupal in this sense has a pretty strict naming convention, but not so much in the folder, since I could put the form anywhere, even in the module files. Second, here comes the nested arrays. When we would like to give a root to our form, we need to write a menu hook, which is probably really familiar to most of you. Hooks are function which get called just before the cache is ready. Actually, the core makes a little list, and he knows that if he finds such a hook in a module, then he has to collect these data to build the menu or to build its routing table. In this case, the root k of the array is going to be the same as our past demo form, and we give a simple title. Then here comes the special way that that says us that it's going to be a form. It's a special function, Drupal get form, and you have to give here also define the ID of the form, which is going to be demo plus forms. Access arguments are optional. You don't have to give it, and we also will make a notification that the file is not in our module, but the core has to find it in the forms directory. Second, once again, nested forms. Although it's pretty simple and has some advantages, nested forms maybe not always the best solution. And the one way is that the one part of the validation is also here, because it's related to the form elements. As you can see, the first one, the form field, which have required true attribute, but also because the modern languages for entities, object instances may be a better approach. But still, it has good advantages. For example, you can alter the content of it from any other different module. Second, when we are ready with the form build, we have the opportunity to do a validation. In this case, because we can't natively validate the datetime, we do a quick if, where we see if this instance of the datetime object. And if it's not, then we set a form error to the date field, and the form validation doesn't go through the submit, but renders the form once again with the setup errors. And finally, we have the submission. Right here, we don't really save any data, but rather set a flash message. And all the values are coming from a second nested array, which is called the form state. Values are stored in the values root key, and each field ID comes afterward. Drupal 7 form view is also, I think, not Drupal 7's strongest part. Although Drupal handles all the rendering, you don't have to do anything, but I think it's a little bit overkill sometimes with the HTML DOM and the classes. You still have the chance to use preprocessing hook functions, but you can manipulate the rendered data. And if you decide that you don't need it at all, you still have the chance to use the classical MVC approach that you use the template files, where you display data. And now coming Symfony2, which is quite differs from Drupal 7. So, for the first look, it's much more scarier than Drupal 7 was. We have more files, much more directories, but the logic, I think, is divided into good pieces. First of all, let's start with the routing file, because that's where the request coming through. These can be found in the resource config. After that, when the task is identified, we are going to go through a controller. Controller can take advantages of entities. For example, here, building forms from an entity with the help of a form class. By the way, it's also a good approach that form classes are separated. It's like a factory method. You can use it anywhere else. And finally, but not least, we have our view file, as you can see in the resources views. The naming convention here is pretty strict. That the first is the index HTML twig. The first that is in a demo folder, which is the name of the our control we would like to use. Then the index is the name of the action which was called in the demo control. But in details a little later. So the routing. In general, in the application, but not in our bundle, we have to say that our app bundle resources config routing YAML is there. It could be automatic, but you have in Symfony a second way to define the routings. These are the annotation when you put the routing just above the controller. Maybe this one is a better solution because you can have all the routes in one file. And in our case, in the app bundle, resources config and the routing YAML. This one is much easier than in Drupal 7 because first we define a name of the link, which is not possible as far as I know in Drupal 7. Then we define the class itself. Then we say which control is going to take action if this class is being called. By giving the name of the link, it gives us flexibility when we use this URL in manywhere and it changes. We have to change it to demo form, for example. Then all the links who use the name of the link don't have to change anything because it's already defined. Only if you are changing under the routing config. Second, we will have a really simple task here with two properties, the task and the due date. Besides that, we are having getters and setters. The getters and setters due date are missing because they were not in a place, but they are not so interesting to talk about them. And our form class. Our form class is extends from abstract type, which are coming from the form component. We have to implement two methods. First is the build form. It takes advantage of the incoming entity. He is waiting to have one property with task. He is going to guess the type of it. He also waits a property named due date. This time we say we don't want to have a date widget, but rather we are going to give a single text input. And finally, we also add a submit button. This can be similar to nested arrays, but much more. If any of you familiar with entity field query, where you can easily call the add function and add such a thing like this. And finally, you always have to define your getMe method because that's where you define your form ID. Because we did it in the menu in the browser. Yeah. Here comes, I think, the really strong part of Symfony2 because the validation is just right there where it belongs. You don't have to tie it up to the build form or to write a validation which always runs to the same form, but rather you say, let's tie it up to the entity itself. You have to use the constraints validator as assert, and after that, as you can see, you can use annotations. In our case, we say the task cannot be blank at any cost. And in due date, we do the same, but we also can say that the type of the read data should be datetime. What's more, we can have validation groups. Validation groups is good because entities can have different forms. In this case, we are having a user object. For the first time, you are going to definitely use it in a registration form. After that, you're probably going to use it to change the user settings. In this case, for all the validation, you can say he can have a custom validation group, and it's only going to be called when you validate the form, you put the custom class name, in this case registration. All the validation constraints which doesn't have groups defined at all will get default. They can have also default validation group as well. And inside the class, all of them will have the class validation group, in our case user. If you have, for example, embedded object in your class, for example an address object, then if you call the default validation of your user form, which have already the address object, then the default is going to run through not even just your user and default properties, but also all the default properties in the address embedded object. If you call your user, then the user is going to go through also through the address object. So in one way you have to be careful, the other one you can pretty well customize the form validations and how they affect each other. Form submissions. This part is much more custom in Symfony2. I will try to go through it fast. First, you just create empty test entity. After that, you put some data into, and then you build your form by giving the form test you would like to use, and by giving the test you would like to put in your form to have default values. And here come the so-called trick. If the handle request is done, it can tell that user input was already inserted or not. Because if not, then it creates the form with default values and the validation doesn't run at all. But if post was sent already, then the validation begins and it can send errors to you. If the validation was alright, we have the ability to put it in the database, but we do the very same way that we set the flash messages that we are ready. And finally, we render the form in a view, which is on the very next slide. Twig actually is a really good thing. It's a template engine for PHP. Although here I do a simple extension from a parent template, and then in the body block I display the form as simple as I can. You can have for each form element a label, a widget, and an error message. And for your form, you can have all overall error messages. And you really have a lot of free space here. You can do whatever you want. And finally, the merge forms, Drupal 8. Drupal 8 structure is somehow inherits from Symfony2 and Drupal 7 as well. You can see that we have the source folder, inside that we have the controller and the form. But besides that, in the root folder, you still have to define your module and info file, which is right now not simple info files anymore, but they are YAMLs. You also have here a new file, the routing. That means you don't have to write many hooks at all. Here I need to mention that in Drupal 8 you are also able to create entities, just the same way it was in Symfony2. It's a little bit more complex because you also have to communicate somehow with the entity manager. So in the user interface, you can edit your content types as well. Right now, we don't have time to discuss this topic. Drupal 8 routing is almost the very same as it was in Symfony 2. Finally, we can have a name of a link, so it's much more flexible. As I told you, we have the very same best attribute. Besides that, we can give defaults here the title. And right here, we don't call any controllers, but rather we call our form class right away. Besides that, we can give optionally permission. Here is an extra slide. Drupal 8 will have three main form classes. First of all, you will have a config form base, which you need when you need to define forms in the admin panel. Secondly, you will have the classical form page base. When you delete, for example, content, then you can set up an answer that you really want to do it, yes or no, cancel. And in the most cases, in 90%, you are going to use the form base. This is the most general approach. We are also going to have 4 new methods. 3 of them are going to be pretty familiar from Drupal 7. The first one is coming actually from Symfony 2. Right now, you don't have to define your form in your menu hook anymore. You have your own method for that. And besides that, those 3 functions which you see here, the build form, the validate, and the submit, actually serves the very same purpose which we had in Drupal 7. With a little difference, because the form which you want to build is still a nested array, but finally, and thanks for that, the form state is already an object. It's much easier to find values in it and to do actions with it. Here is the big question that anybody sees beside one of the property any differences to the Drupal 7 version. The answer should be no, because it's copy-pasted, it's the very same, it's going to be rendered and having to see it's working. In some ways it's good news, in the other way it's not. But we are going to have new elements, a lot of new elements. Most of them are going to be related with HTML5. As you can see, the telephone number, email number. So in this, from this perspective, we are not going to just write our web application to PCs, computers, but with this HTML5 text, also other devices and mobile phones and iPads can use their native way to display these kind of elements. By the way, in the validation part, they not even provide you a client-side validation, as HTML5 does in modern browsers, but it also gives you a server-side validation. Form validation. Here is, the only change is the parameter that we can have form state interface instance form state. It's easier right now to make comparison between values and validate them, but it's still the very same approach. Form submission, that's actually also the very same trick. No news under the sun. And finally, we still have the Drupal render method to put the form into HTML, but this time we can use template files for free, and we also have form builder services. This means we don't have to use always the form pass to render a form, but we can call it from any other modules displayed. We still have the ability to alter the form. It's also because the form variable is still a nested array. We do have 2 main functions here, the hook form alter and the hook form ID alter. And finally we arrive to the conclusions. So the advantages are, finally, we do have object-oriented encapsulation, which is good because it's not like we do have to implement 3 or 4 functions, but if we have helper functions or helper methods, then we have to and we should do it inside a class. So it's going to be in the same place logically right there. We follow object-oriented patterns, which I already mentioned in Symfony2. HTML fine elements are great to use, and the really good thing is also the from state interface instance. These advantages are that validation not really changes at all. Also, we still have for converting the method arrays instead of having something to do with the entities. And also that in Symfony2 we have a lot of helper function to display a form. Right here, we, as far as I know, we have only the basic twig functions. Thank you for your attention, and I would like to ask if you have any questions. Everyone is under shock. Yeah.
So there's this entity validation API to play.
Yes.
Do you know if this entity validation API also supports validation groups, just as Symfony2?
I don't know about validation groups, but what I've seen so far already in the example modules, that you still have to define the scale of an entity, but after that you can make a mapping to an object. So you will use objects in your entity forms, and in this way there will be a good system to add, edit, or delete. You can easily provide this function, and in this case you can use already objects. I don't know anything about validation groups. Anyone else? Who are happy with Drupal 8 for validation? No one. So we have to work on it. All right. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much. And I would like to introduce my colleague, who is going to tell you a big story about how they made the first Drupal 8 site when it was before, very much before beta 14. Please.